Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Renewables Podcast. And we've got another very special guest with us today. But before we introduce that special guest, how are you doing, Mark?
I am very good. I'm good to be here tonight chatting with you. I'm really excited to be speaking to our guest as well. He's the primary reason my little company ventured into the world of solar. So I am a big thanks as well. But how are you, mate?
Yeah, all good. We everybody in this little recording knows how late I am to this recording after some nice traffic down on the outskirts of Warwickshire. But yeah, it's all good really. Ready for this interesting chat because this is a guy that we both speak to on and off throughout the year. And so, Mr. Cato, Stuart Cato, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Sam. And yourself?
Yeah, we're all good, all good. We're glad to be finally here, ready to speak to you about lots of other different and interesting things, hopefully.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, good.
there's a few topics we've spoken about over the last few weeks, Sam, that I think it'd be great to get Stuart's insight towards, even around the earthing and bonding episode we've just kind of had out for the last couple.
Mm.
Because Stuart's had an example that we've been speaking about offline for a while with some the sticky back panels on a zinc roof, Stuart, where you'd seen some of those voltages presenting themselves and had to get around it with a bit of functional earthing, I think is what we determined we were calling it, Sam, the other week. So how
Mm.
did that come about for you, Stuart?
Yeah, that was it was a bit of a shock, pardon the pun. But we got this system up and running. It was the first proper time we've done it, and then sort of we got it we got it commissioned, and then we were back up on the roof just tidying up, and Sean, the guy that works with me, was like, "Oh, I'm getting a bit of a tingle off this roof," and the longer it went on, the higher the voltage increased. We tested it between the zinc roof and the scaffolding. We're getting about 119 volts AC. So
I see.
yeah,
Mm.
That will give a
Okay.
tickle, won't it? And I guess is that coming back to like the parasitic coupling side of things, or is it something else, or did you never really actually find out exactly what it was? You just solved the problem.
no, I think the manufacturer of the panels did or was aware that this could be potentially be an issue with certain types of inverters. Um, mainly transformerless, like most of them are now. But yeah, I think it is basically parasitic capacitance.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess that
Mm.
that maybe comes back to the world of functional earthing. Maybe I don't know. That's just the easy get out, isn't it? 'Cause it's hard to call it bonding or earthing when it's not mains derived. It's like such a tricky one in terminology, but same principle: get rid of the voltage, earth it down, and got rid of it. So yeah, that was an interesting one when you shared what was happening. I think we were all scratching our heads from afar through social media, trying to offer our input and insight
Yeah,
into it because it's interesting. We're all geeky for that kind of stuff, aren't we, Sam?
Yeah, absolutely. And what one question that I have with that, so when you turn the inverter off and everything, that I'm assuming that all just disappeared. So it was definitely coming from the solar PV system that you guys had
yes,
fitted and
yeah.
wasn't something that was there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
instantly disappeared because that
Mm.
was one of our first trains of thought. It was a brand new zinc roof. There was there was lots of existing AC cables running through the roof, because it was two peaks with a flat roof in between, and we're like, well, have they
Right.
had they fixed down any of the fixings through the timber into and caught a cable or something like that? But no, the second you turn the inverter off, the voltage disappeared.
Yeah. And so you ran a functional earth up onto the roof and onto one of the standing seam clamps or something like that
Yeah,
to bond
yeah.
it.
Well,
Yeah.
we the roofer was still on site, so he because there was going to be external insulation on the building, he put a special tag on for us to terminate onto, so that there was
Oh, okay.
nothing visual from the outside. Eventually when the insulation went on, it would cover that
Oh, of
over for us.
course. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course, because it was a thin film. It wasn't like you were sitting it underneath you couldn't sit it underneath the panels,
yeah,
could you? Of course, yeah. So yeah, that's an even bigger headache than just getting it off a standard rail system where you've got a big rail that is kind
yeah,
of a perfect point to earth onto. So yeah, you were basically bonding onto a specially made tag. So thankfully you weren't commissioning that right, when it was depths of winter where you maybe would have been would have been dark, and then scaffolding comes down, roofer disappears, and
yeah,
suddenly they've got this problem.
yeah.
Um, Yeah, no, it follows on really nicely from our conversation from last time me and Matt were filming, because I do think with things like this coming up, these thin film panels and the technology marching on, and how we kind of integrate these sorts of solar PV systems and battery storage systems into people's homes, suddenly you're introducing problems that maybe, some people in their careers have never even seen before. And you kind of get to that point, don't you, where you think, I think I've seen pretty much everything that could go wrong. I've pretty much seen, and then you're still getting kind of surprised with these things, like you have on that one, Stuart.
Yeah, well, like you say, we've been doing this just over 15 years now, and this is the second time I've seen an AC voltage on metal work on the roof. So
Mm.
um, yeah, these things aren't that common, but I think with the way technology is going to progress and things changing, then potentially that is going to be something we're going to be seeing more and more of.
And that
And
that fault was still there on that system. Do you have optimizers on there, Stuart? The inverter wasn't reporting any issues. It was quite happy, just all generating away with a voltage
No,
sat there.
everything was completely fine. There was nothing flagged up through the system. Nothing was tripping. There was no faults, and it was only because you had access to the zinc roof and the scaffolding, which is down to earth,
your Earth, yeah.
that fault appeared.
That's a really
Yeah.
interesting. It's a good example, and it does relate back to the last two episodes. So yeah, this is going to be a growing thing as all of these different panel types start to come out, and people are looking at putting stuff on walls and metallic buildings and other bits and pieces that you might have in garden structures and stuff. We're seeing a lot now. We've got a couple of proposals out for carports, which are kind of metal framed with a solar roof, and you start to question yourself a little bit more around the earthing and bonding and functional earthing of
Mm.
all this stuff to try and keep it safe. That's what we want to do, don't we, as installers? We want to deliver like safe systems, and it's
Yeah,
covering off that problem the other way around when you get a fault in the AC side of a normal dwelling that can then be outside the equipotential zone, if you like, on these metal structures as well. So it's weighting those two risks against each other, I suppose. We're going to interrupt today's show to talk about a new product from Proteus, the sponsors of our lovely little home here on the Renewables podcast. And this is a Type B RCBO in single module format. And this is a super exciting development, I think, in the world of switchgear for us as installers. This is 10 kA rated and bi-directional with all the right markings and logos on. I'm going to pass this over to my co-host Sam for him to have a look at. See what you make of that, mate.
Yeah, it's. I actually dug out in the unit where it's just next door to where we sat now, an older Proteus RCBO. This is a Type A, and it's a 6 kA one, and the difference in the size is next to nothing. So this is the older one here, and this is the new one. So it's basically the same size, but this is a Type B, and we know there's a lot more that goes into a Type B RCBO than does a Type AC. So it just shows the progression there that Proteus are on, and trying to save us space in these DBs by literally having next to no height difference on the two products.
I know, I mean, the Type B normally would be a couple of modules wide at least, probably more, and they've got it all into one single space is incredible. And I know from speaking with a contractor over on DMs who'd had his MCS assessment recently, was saying that the assessor had said he should have a Type B RCBO feeding into his battery storage system, which is outdoors, which is interesting. So I think we're going to see the growth in application of these things, and it's just nice to see the range of stuff Proteus have got out there for us as installers. And there'll be a link in the description alongside wherever you're watching or listening to this to go off and check that out. Let's jump back to the chat.
I think one of
Yeah.
the things as well though with these systems is these faults only ever come to light when something happens. The first time we ever saw this actually was we were asked to decommission a PV system so that they could re-roof. The scaffolder had put the scaffolding up, touched the rail at the same time, and got a shock. And
Mm.
this is the first time we ever saw it, and I was like, "No, he can't have got a shock." And we dove into it a bit, and this was about 6 or 7 years ago, so you know no one was talking about parasitic capacitance or anything, and we just found this voltage, and
Yeah.
I think it's quite important to look at that, and to help educate the homeowners as well, because if you've got someone cleaning your panels or something. They're out there with their nice aluminium pole with the water running down it. These things could start becoming a bit more of an issue.
Yeah, they can be, and I think one big failing that probably all of us are responsible for, as well as people that have left the industry, is not trying to offer some decent maintenance packages for customers. I think a lot of us, mainly because the industry's been so big, been so busy, is that you're installing new systems all the time, or you're changing the inverter when something goes wrong. Actually, when we're starting to see when we saw the rise of these transformerless inverters, where we haven't got that same galvanic separation, all this other good stuff, which is supposed to keep us kind of separate from some of this stuff, maybe we should be looking a lot more at doing some more in-depth maintenance on this sort of stuff. But it's not even easy to test against, because you have to physically have a reference point to Earth, and then also be able to actually touch the metalwork. And if that's a completely inaccessible roof, it's kind of like, well, how do you kind of find that out if the inverter's not throwing some sort of like ground fault indication fault or something like that? It's usually when it gets to a point that the inverter can actually either see that there's a problem or the inverter fails.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so I'm up.
No, go on, Stuart.
I was going to say, yeah, that's a really good point. Like you're saying, having a reference point. Is it something that we look at that actually we go, do you know what? We put functional earthing on all these systems, and you run it down through the inverter with a test point like you have for lightning protection systems, where actually you can separate it out, and then you can test between the 2 points and see if there is this voltage.
Yeah.
That was one of the things you raised on the last chat, actually, Sam, wasn't it? That you'd have kind of a looped earth through an array, so 2 different points on the array to test between down at the inverter location, to give someone something to work with. It doesn't help with the older systems that are already out there, but it can help going forward, can't it, if we start thinking about these things now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like it's a really good point Stuart makes there, because my point was around kind of the continuity of like a ground mounted system, wasn't it? Where we were talking about they want you to do like almost like a ring formation, where you have your bonding cable at the start of your array, and then another one leaving the far end of the array, to make sure you've got continuity across kind of that full structure. But I think that's a really good point, like you say, Stuart, is whether or not it becomes that thing where even inverters have a port where you put that functional earth in, that you can set it not to bond the panels. It's just an isolated terminal, but potentially something that inverter can test against as well. So that because it's obviously it's got the DC coming down from it, and whether or not it can use that to intelligently test what's happening up on that framework up on the roof. But it's one of them things that, like you said, Mark, it doesn't help the systems that are out there, but we have to try and get in front of some of these problems, so that there's a solution for making sure the next 25 years starts from a good point, and is running through. But yeah, I think a test point would be a really interesting way to go about being able to easily test, because I know people that have never had their panels cleaned, and therefore you might be getting a call when the window cleaner goes, oh, the nasty belt from your panels, and you're kind of like, has he? Or you don't really know if they have or haven't. So having that easy test point would be a quick and easy way to kind of go, yeah, he probably did. He probably didn't get a nasty belt. So yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a way to reference something, isn't it? Before we get on to the next sort of topic I've got on my list to ask you both about, I just wanted to wonder how your backs are doing, because you two are both in the process of some extensive renovations. I mean, Stuart is doing some hardcore renovations, which is involving almost wild camping, and you look to be digging for treasure, Sam, over the weekend.
Yeah, how's yours going, Stuart? I'm still not over mine. So I mean, you're probably not over yours, because yours looks like a bigger project than mine. But how's yours going?
Yeah, we had a little bit of setback today. We had an email saying that the windows won't be going in for at least another week or so, which means some of the kids will be in the garden for at least another week. But yeah,
camping.
Yeah. To do part of the extension, we had to lose the kitchen, the office, utility room, 2 bedrooms. So yeah, hence why I'm
Oh,
sitting in a welfare container at the moment that's on the drive.
But you're both going all
wow.
in because you're both having heat pumps and solar and all the rest of it. Sam, you seem to be dragging some great big massive pipe through your garden full of pipes, not cables. I don't know what you're playing at.
Yeah, I mean, I should definitely have gone first because mine is nowhere near as impressive as that. So that was a mistake on my part. But yeah, so we're planning for a heat pump, and it's one of the things we would be doing a lot of groundwork. So it's kind of like, right, now is the time to get this pipe work in. I've added an extra couple of ducts as well, just because you can never have enough ducts. And I've said, I turned around to my dad who was helping me dig this, and I said, I am never beep 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 digging this trench again, because that's the second time we've dug that trench, and I'm never digging this trench again. I will find a different way. Something has to happen between the house and the where this garage is going. I am finding a different way. But yeah, it's the cost of us trying to move the heat pump away from the house slightly and away from the neighbours a little bit. They're very quiet nowadays, but I wanted it out of the way. So we installed a four core, that's me, electrician, a multi-pipe insulated pipe to the where the garage is going, and then the heat pump is going on the back of the garage out the way, and the hot water cylinder has to go out there, unfortunately, as well, because we've got no room for it in the house. So we've got a flow and return from the air source heat pump, and then the other two pipes are sort of the flow from the cylinder for our hot water, and then a return so that we can have like a secondary pump on it, just to give us that hot water a little bit quicker than just drawing it all from the garage all the time. And that's the challenge for people that are wanting heat pumps. You know, I won't be on my own with that. Where you're looking at space and you think, I haven't got space for a big cylinder here for a family of four, with two young girls, which are only going to increase the amount of of water that they use. And so yeah, we lose a bit of efficiency having the secondary pump going on. Well, won't necessarily be going all the time, but we lose a little bit of efficiency there. But it's kind of that toss up between efficiency and convenience a little bit. But you're going for heat pump as well, are you, Stuart?
Yeah. Thankfully, we've managed to get some space inside the house.
Yeah.
Because as a family of six, we've got a 500 litre cylinder going in.
That's a swimming pool, mate, not a cylinder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
What, putting your
again,
own reservoir in?
yeah. Well, again, we'll have we've got 2 young girls, 2 young boys. As they get older, they're going to spend a lot more time in the shower,
Yeah.
hopefully. Um, certainly the
Oh,
girls will anyway.
yeah. No, that's it's good. Sounds like we're both up against it a little bit. You certainly more in a bigger way than us. But yeah, that we've very thankful for you coming on, Stuart, because we've had chats before this podcast, and I think you've been chatting to Mark as well. And yeah, there was an interesting conversation we had around the whole sodium battery side of things, which I think you'd seen on the podcast before, or one of your clients had seen, or there was some way that your client had seen something to do with this sodium battery from 11 Energy.
Yeah. So actually, he'd been speaking to Mark up at one of the shows,
Ah, okay.
um, and he's down in Poole, and I think Mark recommended myself to him, and he's come and spoken to us, and thankfully he's one of these customers that have said, do you know what, we want to be innovative, we want to try new things. I've seen this, I'm quite keen on this idea. So we're looking more into it, and hopefully it's a solution that we can provide to him.
No,
So
it's an interesting one, and we saw some of that at installer show, didn't we, Mark?
yeah, I mean, apart from the chat I think that you'd had with the gentleman on the stand, I'd not really looked any further into these sodium batteries, to be honest.
Mm.
So I don't really know anything about the capacity of them, how they work. Obviously, the chemistry is supposedly safer. It's salt water, isn't it, at the end of the day? So you'd think that's pretty safe to store in your home. But what's the sort of capacity on these things? Is it similar 5 kilowatt hour module to a lithium, or is it a bit different? I don't,
Well, the one I was looking at, it's a rack mounted, and I think they're about 4.5 kilowatt hours. um I can't remember if that's nominal or usable, but still, it's a decent amount. And
Yeah.
I think it was saying off the top of my head, I think you can put 8 modules onto one inverter.
Okay, so it's a similar sort of thing you'd expect with your atypical lithium system. Then, are these
Yeah.
are these kind of retailing already, or are they still in the world of innovation?
There's some on the market.
Okay.
I think they've got a few different inverters in production or planning to come out, but it's it's like anything. I think they're in their early stages, so they're just trying to get their foot in the door, really.
Yeah, and is this
Yeah.
customer of yours like looking at it from, I don't know, is it a safety thing that they're worried about in the house, or is it just 'cause it's more environmentally friendly, or they just like the sound of having a sodium battery? What's kind of driving them to make that choice?
That's a very good question. I had a I was on the phone with him yesterday for about 40 minutes, just talking about the things he's trying to achieve, and not just for the solar, but for the whole property. Um, and like Sam was saying when I was on the phone to him the other day, that sometimes you want to try these new products, but you struggle to go to a customer and go, well, I've never installed one of these before. We want to use you as a guinea pig. And they go, well, actually, I'm not keen on that. Whereas he's come to us and said, this is what we really like. This is what we'd be keen on trying. Um, and we really hope it works. And if it doesn't work, we're prepared to take that risk.
So powerful that having that customer come to you with that risk, because I mean you'll find it as well, Mark. But you see something interesting on the market that comes on the market, but it's so difficult to stop selling what is already selling within your company and to transition from a set of products that you know inside out, you know the capacities of them, you know the drawbacks, you know the positives, you know all of that, to take yourself, maybe your sales team or your design team, or just whatever size or capacity you are. For everybody listening, it's really hard to kind of just go, right, we're now going to pivot from this really successful product or set of products, and we're going to take a risk with this new product and take time out of our busy schedule to really just learn what's happening there. It's very hard to get that headspace, but when you get a customer, and I've had one or two over the years that suggest something. It might be on the panel side, it might be on the battery side, it might be on the EV side, that kind of go, yeah, I'm prepared to have a little gamble at this. I think this is a really interesting, piece of equipment or concept. Let's try it, and let's just take the risk. And it's almost too good of an opportunity not to try something innovative, because that you might wait another 5 years before another customer comes to you with those kind of motives. And also it means that you get a really good insight into whether or not that product is going to be worth pursuing for other customers, and gets you ahead in the market. So I would grasp that with both hands and really go for it, because I think that's a really good opportunity.
Well, yeah, that's it. I like new products. Like you say, it's always trying to find the time to sit down and study them and play with them and all that sort of stuff. And I imagine you guys were both the same. But when I first started in the solar industry, I put the system on my house, so that actually when you go to see a customer, you can go, yeah, I've installed one before. And
Yeah.
you've got that history. Whereas because there's so many products on the market now, you can't offer everything, and you can't do all the training. So you need to find what works. But like you say, taking that step into a new product is always a bit, it's a bit of a risk. And
We had
Yeah.
those learnings ringing in our ears, Stuart, from working with you on that project you were good enough to let us come on to, with the solar edge system that you and Sean were fitting. And we'd kind of determined from that that's what we were going to do in our business. And it was kind of, when we saw the SIG Energy stuff come out, we had exactly the thoughts that you two guys have just said there. We can't just start selling this to customers because we don't know if it's any good. It looks good, it sounds good, but no experience of it. So I gave it to Matthew and put it in his house so he could be the guinea pig on that system. And you kind of take a chance, and we struck lucky with that because that product is properly decent and it's kind of taken off in a very good way, and it's helped our business. But yeah, we've fallen the wrong side of that as well with some other products that we tried with brands that I won't mention, because you kind of think, well, you know, we've got lucky once, we could get lucky again. And then you get burnt, don't you, with the callbacks and the stuff not working and the headaches. And I'm sure you guys have gone through that pain years before we have. And we've tried to condense that learning that you gave us, Stuart, right at the start. And we have made some bad choices and not listened as much as we maybe should have done, because we did get lucky with Sig Energy.
Yeah, I think my point of view on that is actually now is the market now, or certainly when you entered it, you know, a couple of years ago, Mark, is actually it became a lot easier to make the wrong choice because there's so much choice. Whereas when Stuart was doing it and when I was doing my apprenticeship and all that, you kind of had a couple of choices really. I mean, I remember when I don't know if it was when Solace entered the UK, but Solace started to become a bit of a thing, which the Solace inverter was one of the first we started fitting that didn't have a transformer, was transformerless. Before that, we were fitting some Feronius gear, the SMAs, all like household brands, absolutely rock solid equipment. There's still thousands of both of those brands out there ticking away, not missing a beat. But then this revolution of trying to get a Sunny Boy inverter up above your head onto the bracket with a massive lump of copper in that, unbelievable, amount of weight in those. And I remember when Solace came out, and it was like, wow, this is all transformerless, and it's look how we're throwing it to each other. Like, look how light this is. And then sort of over this last, well, around when just sort of a couple of years probably before you entered it, Matt, there's just the choice just went through the roof. You've got like all these brands that you hadn't really heard of, but then suddenly started offering batteries, and then suddenly the product list is growing and growing, and you think, hang on, what the heck am I going to choose to install here? Because am I missing something like the Sig Energy? We were relatively slow on the Sig Energy side of things, but we had our own brands that we were fitting. We were fitting lots of Solar Edge because I'd fitted that before, and that was always a really high quality product. And the Solace, and it's very hard to, when you've been established for a few years or many years, to make that change, to go, these products that I know inside out, that I know the price of them, I know how to sell them and all that, I'm going to just pivot and I'm going to choose something else. It must be even harder for companies that are even, that are bigger than all of our companies put together, that have got an educated sales team. They've got installers around the country that know how to fit it all and all that, to just suddenly go, right, we're going this way now and we're going to start fitting this product. It must be very, very challenging for them. So in a way, we're maybe a little bit more flexible than some of the big boys out there.
Yeah, do you know what? I think also looking at that is about the complexity of all the software and everything you've got to use. Going back to the SMAs and the Fronius and stuff, literally the commissioning, you'd set the country code, you'd turn it on, and as long as there was some light, it would set up and you'd generate. And there was at times where you set the code wrong and you have to go back and put the grid guard code in and all this sort of stuff and mess about. But commissioning could take you 10 minutes and that's it. Whereas we're very big in Solar Edge, and so we know that inside out, but that will still take us half an hour to get it all commissioned, and you've got all the mapping and all that sort of stuff. And when you get a new product, you've then got to learn all that and all the quirks. And we had a while back, we've done quite a lot of alpha systems, but there was a problem that if you went back into one certain menu, it would kick you out the commissioning and basically say it's commissioned, where actually it's only halfway done, and you'd have to phone up service support and all this sort of stuff, and it was a right pain. So finding that with a new product as well, you almost need I almost need to get one of these inverters and just fit it and play with it. And
yeah,
but you start doing that with every product, and I'm going to have 10 inverters set up in my house.
This is it. Do you think it's because consumers are more informed now, and back when you were first doing this, it was really you suggesting the product and that's what they were having? So they didn't really care. They just wanted solar to generate them power. They weren't bothered what was behind it doing it. And now they're seeing all of this marketing and new innovation and stuff products claim to do better than others. And they're the ones maybe leading on that a bit more now. And as installers, we've kind of got to jump to that tune a little bit.
Oh,
in our business, we get that all the time. We want this system. And we're like, well, we don't fit that. Well, can you, kind of thing? And
yeah, when I first started, it was a bit of a shock because I had to become a salesman. You know,
Mm.
for the first few years, you'd go to a customer phone you up and say, "Look, we'd like solar. Can you come and talk to us about it?" And you'd spend hour and a half, 2 hours just talking about how the system could work and the feed-in tariff and all this sort of stuff. And because people didn't know about solar, they'd heard about it and get these panels on your roof, generate electricity, but they want to understand how it connects and how it works and how you're going to put it on their roof without their roof leaking and all this sort of stuff. So you had to become a lot more of a salesman and know all the systems inside out and those sorts of bits and pieces. Whereas, like you say, Mark, now customers will phone you up and go, I want 12 panels rated at this with this system on, and you go, okay, we can do that, but also maybe recommend this instead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's an absolute minefield now because you've got back in those days, I was an apprentice back in the feed-in tariff days, but I saw a bit of that and it was very much like the way that you sold solar back in those days was all around the feed-in tariff. And it was all around how much how much you're going to earn once this system pays itself back. And we obviously still got the kind of we're still on the legacy of the whole payback period and all of that now still. But back then it was a much easier calculation because people were just like, right, I'm going to pay it off in 5 years, whatever it was, depending on the size of the system, and then after that I'm generating £1,000 a year. Great, cool, yeah, let's have it. Whereas now you've got right, I'm going to have this many panels. I want some bird protection on it. Bird protection, I don't think we ever fitted bird protection back in the days when I was employed by a company. Don't remember once fitting that. I don't even remember it being a thing. And then but nowadays it's kind of there's the panels, there's the battery, there's the EV charger, there's a hot water diverter, there's the integration with an energy company. It's okay, well, this system, even though this will be best for you, isn't a system on their list, so you won't get this tariff. And then they ask you that dreaded question of, well, what's my payback time is? And you just go, I have no idea what your payback time is going to be because there's just too many factors. You've got how much you're going to generate, you've got how are you going to use it with the battery, you've got how much are you going to get paid to export it at different times of the day if you're going on something like an agile tariff. It's how much are you going to put into your car? Are you going to bother with put charge? All these things just make it almost more dishonest trying to give them a payback period than just saying, I have no idea. I have no idea when you're going to pay us back because there's just too many variables. I think that's kind of where we're at with it. But yeah, I know what you mean, Stuart, with the sales side of things. You end up just being a little bit of a fish out of water to start with because you're kind of like, I know everything technically, but I haven't got that killer line that makes you,
yeah.
sign on the dotted line. But you must have felt that as well, Mark, have you, when you've come into this kind of solar world?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's certain customers who are all about price, and we've spoken about that before, and other ones who are focused in on the return on investment, where people will lean on those figures unethically, shall we say, with the angles of pitch that they put on their arrays and their orientations in their proposals, which you go and subsequently find nothing like the truth. And we've just seen the energy prices going up again, haven't we? I think today or yesterday, whatever it was, another 2% nudge up for this winter, and making a guess over 25 years. It's just a fallacy, isn't it? I don't understand why we still go down those roads. But yeah, when you stood in front of customers trying to impress them, tap dance for them as one of the old sales people who taught me my first process of selling. It's not easy. It's not natural to, is it? We're technical people at the end of the day. And when you end up in those positions, you sink or swim to a large degree, don't you? I think.
Yeah, you do. And I think it's a lot of, thankfully, a lot of my customers are very much aware that technically you can explain it, and I don't know if the way that people want to be sold to now has changed slightly from the whole double glazing side of things. I think people smell that a lot better now. I think it's more about being honest with people about what their, what your capabilities are, but also, about what you know is going to happen and what you can't know is going to happen, and being honest with people about that. And a lot of the time I've said to people, look, if you have anybody that's giving you a solid payback period for a system of this complicated nature, that I would ask to see all the workings out, because it's just impossible. But how do you deal with that dreaded question of a payback period, Stuart?
Yeah, it's like you say, it's a tricky one. I think all we tend to do is we go for a standard calculation. We say, look, if this is how much you're paying for electricity, this is how much you've used on average over the last year, this is what you're likely to see, with a big, exclamation marks around the likely, because we include so many caveats saying, look, if you all of a sudden get a heat pump installed, or you put an EV charger in, it's going to massively change. And there's no hard and fast thing, and like we all know that one summer is completely different to another. So you could have 3 really bad summers, and then the customer goes, oh, well, I'm not seeing the payback that I should be. You're like, well, you haven't got the sunshine. So
Yeah,
that's a good point, because I've seen that on my house this year to last year. I think we're already ahead of the production from last year. This year, I'm already at the end of August. It's a massive difference.
Yeah. And I think it's purely just about managing expectations. And we include the payback because we have to under MCS. It's something that the customers can get a rough idea of, but we only use it as a rough idea. At the end of the day, you're going to see money coming back if you sign up for the SEG, or potentially see money coming back. But these are the savings that you're potentially going to see. But unless you start breaking it down on hourly usage and hourly generation, you're never going to get accurate figures.
I think it's just impossible when you're relying on the weather. It's impossible. Absolutely impossible. And like you say, I think you can only be honest with people about that and caveat it to death, because otherwise you don't want someone coming back to you and saying, you said I would generate 4,000 kilowatt hours this year. I've only done 3,998 and just kind of opening yourself up to that. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to move us along a little bit from payback calculation. It's giving me palpitations. So
having heard Stuart just mention the dreaded MCS, maybe we should touch on that one. I don't know what you think of the incoming changes, Stuart, but there's been a few posts I've seen on LinkedIn from other people in the sector having a bit of a moan and a gripe towards MCS. And I'm a supporter of that scheme, primarily because you sang its praises, Stuart, at the time we were first looking at the industry, and I agree with you. I think it's important we do have some sort of standard bearer. But how do you see some of the changes coming, without speaking for you on all of
that? I don't know. Like I've always been, I'm an advocate for the MCS, but also I understand that it's not perfect, and we're going to see changes that I'd like to think improve it, but they don't always line up properly. But yeah, it's not perfect, but we need something, and until we've got something better, what can you do with it?
Yeah, I share that view. I think all three of us probably share that view. I won't speak for Matt, but that's sort of kind of learned from our conversations, Matt, that all three of us support MCS in the idea around it. Gatekeeping the industry and all of that. I think there's some ridiculous parts of it, like the whole payback side of things, and this whole thing around the highs or rec requirement and all that. It just seems overcomplicated for what it is, and just the sheer amount of paperwork you've got to handle for what is domestically maybe a 3 to 5 day job, and you've got paperwork as if you were taking on the rest of HS2. It's like it's unreal the amount of paperwork that you've got to do, and from what's been put out there in terms of the changes that they want to make in terms of making it more install focused and back to kind of basics around, are people actually fitting this equipment correctly with the correct, clearance areas and the correct equipment and all of that. I think that's a really good way forward, but where is it? Come on, let's start to see some of this now, because words are one thing, but actions are what we're all waiting for. But yeah, what else have you seen on LinkedIn around all that, Mark? Has there been anything other mutings around what's happening there?
It was somebody a bit upset around, I think it was the process they'd gone through for their MCS assessment and how the payments had been collected. So I think it's more of like the admin around it.
Right.
And then the actual on-site assessment not been really what they'd hoped for, just the atypical running around the office and 10 minutes on site looking at the system. And there's some other musings around the consumer protection codes, and I've got an experience of that myself because we've moved between one to another because of some dissatisfaction with one of them. Primarily, I got frustrated at them changing the logo so much and making us update it on our website all the time. And then threatening to remove us from their consumer protection code if we don't keep that up to date. And then you look on their kind of list of stuff. If you want to make an admin charge, a change to your address or something, they'll charge you like a 35 quid admin fee. So it's like, what's this like? If I'm changing my website for you, I want to charge you a £35 admin fee for doing that. It was just annoying me, and there was some other things there as well. So we left. And anyway, they subsequently took a full year's payment for us, despite us telling them we wanted it to leave, and then said we can only have 50% of that back because we have to give 6 months notice. And you just think, if we did that with one of our customers who paid a deposit or something, and we said, no, you can only have 6 months of it back, they'd be going absolutely crazy at us. So it's like massive double standards, and I could rant about that. And I'm sitting on my hands very tightly not to call this particular consumer protection code out at the minute because it's so annoying. But yeah, I think they're all taking liberties somewhat.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most popular things that, you know, people that have looked into the new MCS scheme have been quite excited about, is the whole that going more in house with MCS and things. And you know, that must be worrying some of these other providers, but it's one of them where I think people are interested to see how that would work and whether or not that would solve some of these problems of, you know, of that. I've had positive and negative experiences with them, with the one we're with, and some of them have saved our skin when we've had, you know, really awkward customers that have blamed us for things that are literally nothing to do with us. But we've also had the experiences of, this is just, you know, chasing us down over like logos or something on the website that isn't quite right, and I'm like, God, grow up. We're trying to run a business here, and you're telling us that, like you say, we've not got the right logo on there. And yeah, it's very, very, very frustrating for us. But fingers crossed it'll help us all with our businesses if they do focus more on the install side of things. Because I heard an interview you had, Stuart, where they're asking you around, you know, the standard of installs around solar PV that you're seeing, and you obviously gave your opinion on what you were seeing out there.
Yeah, it's quite bad, really. You know, only 2 weeks ago I lost out on a job. You know, we went to price it up, and the customer was happy to show me what the other company had designed. Obviously, he kept the price, and I never want to see another price. But he went, yeah, we can fit 11 panels up here, and I looked at it and went, oh, that's quite tight. Measured it all up, and I said, most you can fit 7. You know,
Wow.
even measuring the panels using the same panels, I said, look, the most you can get is 7 because you've got to have your clearances from the edges. You know, and looking over their proposal more in depth, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if the panels were sitting in the gutter and right up to the ridge, and you know. And unfortunately, the customers ended up going with them, even though we said, "Look, these are the guidelines. These are why these things are in place." I think partly because of cost, partly because of the amount they can generate. So you know, we're losing out to these. But this is another MCS registered company that shouldn't be doing this, and you know, they're not being policed at the end of the day.
Yeah, tricky one. And you've come across some kind of horror shows as well, Mark, haven't you, with new installations in lofts and all these other sorts of things.
Yeah, it's frustrating, the newer stuff and the older stuff as well, where you go to do repairs and you're finding stuff with cables just lashed in, shoved through holes in the felt, and tiles not ground out, panels overhanging the end of the roof space, as you just said, Stuart. I went to one of those the other week, and they've not even followed a space. They've actually oversailed the edge of the roof, and you're just like, how's that? I mean, this is a system that was 18 months old. It's not a really old one. How's that ever been allowed? It's all MCS certified and signed off and whatnot. And then you look into the policies the consumers are trying to claim against, because the original contract is no longer trading, and a lot of these consumer protection codes and MCS are washing the hands of it and saying, well, it was never installed to manufacturer's instructions and all the rest of it. And I understand that, but surely if they've issued the policy at the point of sale, that's their opportunity to check that it has been. You know, that should be a liability of them as the kind of certification provider or the insurance provider, to make sure they're happy to issue that policy. They shouldn't be able to then wiggle out of it down the road, because customers don't know what is right and what isn't around solar, do they? It's hard for them to be expected to understand if the system's right or not.
It is, and I think, you know, you can't expect customers to know that. It's like when you go to buy a new car, you can't know the inner runnings of that car. You look at, well, if you're me anyway, you look at the color, you look at, is it comfortable, but you don't necessarily know that exactly how the engine works or exactly how this works or that, and what the rules are around it. It's one of them where you rely on the people that come round to sell the job, install the job, and I think what you said, Stuart, there is, they are MCS registered companies, but they're not doing it right. And I know MCS have brought out like the spot checks where they just say, right, we're going to go visit this customer tomorrow or whatever, or next week. Can you make sure they're aware we're coming? Or they even give them a ring to say, look, we're doing a spot check on this installer, And we've had one of them where they've just gone to one of our sites. It was the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever gone through, but it was good, because it meant if it's happening to us, it's happening to a lot of companies out there. So it means that hopefully they're finding some horror shows, and people are actually starting to up their game. But yeah, let's see if that actually comes to light.
Yeah, have you seen any of that, Stuart, in your time of industry, where MCS or one of the consumer protection codes have stepped in and sorted something out, or is it generally left to the customers to get it fixed?
No, generally we haven't seen too many like that where they've had to have it fixed. There was one we did. We were asked to come in and look at a system as a third party. The system had only just gone on, actually, and the customer was a QS, and he wasn't overly convinced about the way it had been installed. And thankfully, he hadn't paid the final bill or anything. So we went in and said, no, this all has to come off. So he managed to claim back a lot of it. He hadn't paid the final bill, but he claimed back quite a lot because he paid through his credit card. But we haven't seen too much from rec side or from the MCS side. We've been asked to look at a couple of jobs, but never heard the outcome of those situations.
So, as a couple of people who've been in this industry for quite a while now, as you two have, do you think the installation standards as a whole are worse now than they were like when you were first setting up doing this, or is it kind of consistent? We're getting better or worse, do you reckon?
You go first, Stuart, because you've been doing it longer than me. I'm thinking of my answer here, because
it's a tricky one, because when we first started, there wasn't a great deal of standards. The MCS didn't have all the installation standards and the full wind loading calcs like they do today, and all the requirements. So you could sit there and go, well, actually the standards weren't too bad because there weren't any standards. But you look at the old systems where you used to drill through tiles and tighten the washer down against the tile and that sort of stuff, and by today's standards that's awful, but back in the day that was an acceptable method of installation. So
yeah, that's so right, and that's what I was struggling with there a little bit, because I was like, if you're looking at it through your eyes today and what you know today and everything, you look at it and go, I can't believe they've just put a bolt hanger straight through the slate and tightened it down and thought that was okay. Right, that was okay.
Yeah,
It's like it might not have sat right with everybody, but you know, it was an MCS fixing system from what I can remember.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
and
it's like going back to your car analogy. You know, you get a car
mm,
that's 30, 40 years old, and there's no seat belts, there's no airbags, and everybody looks at it today and goes, "Well, that's not very safe." You're like, well,
mm,
that's how they used to make them back in the day.
yeah, it is, and sort of expanding on the point I was making there as well is like the installations now got a lot more complicated because the panel side of things, you know, there's solutions there with like the proper flashings and everything for the panel side, but there's a lot more that people can get wrong. They might have completely the right intentions to do a really neat job, but they get it wrong because they're not familiar with like the islanding side of things. Because obviously back in the day, there wasn't really battery systems and stuff apart from like really specialist ones for UPS, you know, situations. But you know, commercially available, there wasn't really backup systems there, and so the whole earth rod side of things and all of that wasn't really a or the whole islanding side of things, it was basically tell your customer that if they have a power cut, it turns off because that's just how it was. It basically goes off if it's dark, or it goes off if you've not got any power.
Yeah,
You know, unless it's like a special off-grid system, that was that they were kind of the rules around it. Whereas now you've got potential for a bad installation on the panels, the inverter, the EV charger, the battery. Like there's more to it now, and so I think there's always going to be people that don't do the roofing right, either through lack of knowledge or speed or whatever. And, you know, again, they might have the right intentions and they might look back on that job in a few years' time and go, oh my God, I'm slamming sleepless nights over that. And we all go through that process of learning what's best to do. But I don't think I can find an answer to that because it's a lot more complicated now. But equally, there's a lot more people doing it now because there's so many different facets of being a renewables installer, or it's certainly on the rise.
It's hard to gauge, isn't it? That's how I'd see it as well. That there's a lot more coverage with social media as well, with people finding this stuff and sharing it, and we're more aware of it than we was 10, 15 years ago. Not just around solar, but all of the electrical industry. We often see those posts flaring up that maybe would have existed 20 years ago if we had camera phones. You
Mm,
don't know, do you? I don't think there's any new invention of low quality work, but I think we've got two aspects to it with the renewables industry. It's maybe different to the rest of the electrical sector, and that's the people who are doing stuff deliberately, cutting corners, if you like, missing out on roof fixings, lashing cables in, chucking stuff in lofts, or whatever you want to look at it. And then there's people who may be doing that unconsciously, as you've just said there, Sam, where they don't realize what they're doing maybe isn't how it should be done, but they're still trying to make a good job of it. Or we found one of those the other week where somebody had put a battery system up in a loft space, but they'd actually made a very, very tidy job of it. It's just not where it really should have been if we're going to follow the paths to the letter of the law, I suppose. And there's still question marks of whether we should or shouldn't be doing that, I suppose. But it wasn't someone who'd deliberately gone to work to do something wrong. They'd just maybe not been fully aware of all of the guidance that's out there. And I think that's the two pools of people out in the industry at the minute, and how
mm.
that's affected best, I don't know. Because I guess the people out there who were just trying to turn a quick buck, they're always going to be doing that, aren't they? Whatever standards are there, they'll try and circumvent them or work a way around them. And I guess the other pool of people, it's just awareness maybe, and training and more knowledge that's passed out maybe through MCS. I don't know.
that's it. I think the thing is because these kits are so available now. You know, you can a lot of wholesalers are doing these kits. You can just buy it that will include X amount of roof anchors, X amount of rail, X amount of panels. That people are buying them and going, oh yeah, I can fit that. That's not a problem. And it's that lack of knowledge about how to do it, but also the standards and requirements of the system. And and it's not just about the roof work; it's also about the requirements of the DNO and all these sorts of things that, like you say, there's people who are trying to do a good job. They're buying the kit. They're probably reading the manufacturer's instructions, but as we all know, some of these manufacturers, they may be German or whatever, they've got their own set of instructions that don't necessarily comply with MCS, or they say, oh well, your spacings are this much on your roof anchors, but actually for your wind loading, they need to be a lot less.
Mm.
So yeah, there's
Yeah.
people trying to do their best with a small amount of knowledge.
Yeah, I think I've been in that position. We've done one recently in Halifax. It was on the side of a hill, and it was windy, like properly windy. So we did the calculation, and it spat out a number. I was like, oh, I don't fancy that. I think I'm going to put an extra couple in intro, and it was on slate as well. So it was no mean feat to like. It wasn't just like a normal, pan tile, concrete tile roof, or whatever, where we could just lift an extra couple of tiles out. It's a full flashing and everything, making sure we've got doubles, double hooks on the edge. So we've got, where the wind's going to hit it, and basically packing this roof out because I'm terrified of that. That's at our own expense. We haven't priced for that necessarily. It was more of a customer's happy to go ahead. You know what? Now he's happy to go ahead. I really have to think of this seriously about how we deliver this. And it was a very, very tricky install for the guys. And when I said, oh, by the way, lads, could you throw an extra couple of hooks in there? They just looked at me and were like, "You're a joker." But it's that's the toss up, and that's the experience that comes with doing the job. And so if you've only just entered that, it's not your fault you've not done that before. And if you are going to kind of if you are doing wind calculations and all that, technically that's all good. But when you have a bit of experience, you know that they can rattle a bit still, and all this sort of stuff is kind of like just add an extra couple of hooks in, or stagger your hooks to try and kind of give it that solid connection to the roof over the course of that couple of panels. All that comes with experience, and you do have to start somewhere. So it's kind of yeah, you just have to be in it and take that jump. We all remember our first solar PV system that was under our own belt, and the sleepless nights that gives you, even if it is on your own house.
Still, every stormy night brings a sweat on my brow. I'm not going to lie. It's like, please don't let this be the 100-mile-an-hour devastating wind that slaps into when a rain rips mine off someone's roof.
Yeah, it either has to be like an unprecedented amount of wind where it could just take anything off. If it's just really windy, wind is the worst one, easily the worst one, because it's just one of them where you just think that's coming off and hitting someone's car or something, because it's just unbelievably windy. But it shows you that there isn't. I know that obviously on Facebook there's a lot of these ones or there's quite a few that end up coming off. But you think of all of these installs around the country that will be done, maybe not to the letter of the law, that still do withstand these storms. And you think actually, they are pretty secure up there, even if you maybe aren't following the exact letter to the letter. But it's more there as a insurance policy for you to go, there you go, Mr. Magistrate, that is how I installed it, and there's my paperwork to back it up.
That's it. Like you say, I've been to a few jobs where you're looking at the system, and you get the camera underneath or whatever, and you're looking there going, these roof anchors are 1,800 apart. How the hell is this thing still here? And the customer's like, yeah, we had it installed 10 years ago. And you think, okay, but somehow it's managed to survive.
Yeah, that's it. It's a very, very, when you see some of them, you kind of get a little bit of confidence about your own installs. Well, this one's been all right, and mine must all be all right. But it's a very hard thing to sleep through. Is a very stormy night.
Sure is. And we've had a long old chat tonight, and I'm conscious of keeping everyone up beyond 9 o'clock because we've all got kids and early starts in the morning. I'm sure, but I couldn't leave this conversation without talking about one innovation I've seen the last few weeks, and that is of yours, Stuart, for grinding out the back of tiles. My guys, Matty and Nathan, they're obsessed with your socials, and anytime you post, they see it before I do. They see you as a bit of a leader in the industry, and they were straight onto my WhatsApp group chat. We've got to make one of these. We need to have it. So you've finally done it. You've been thinking about it for a year or so. I've been chatted to you offline.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I've always been, when you're grinding out the back of pan tile, you're like, I know I've got this triple blade grinder. I should just make this, and you then just keep grinding away, doing your single cuts and then knocking it out and trying to make it all smooth. And then I was just doing the install at my place, and I had a spare half an hour, and I was like, right, I know I've got a load of scrap wood kicking about. Let's see what I can knock up. And I tell you what, it's a game changer. I was doing this weekend actually. I got 26 panels up on the roof, all done and dusted, And what I do is I just get a whole row of tiles in one go, set them there, and in about 5 minutes I could have 10 tiles ground out.
Living
So
the dream.
just
Yeah.
explain to everyone, Stuart, then what is it you've actually built here? So you've got a wall chaser that has like a Metabo triple blade
Yeah.
wall chaser, and then so what have you made?
So it's a framework that you slide the pan tile in underneath, and it's got a guide for the wall chaser. And all you do is you set the depth of the chaser to the depth that you want to grind off at, and then you just run it up, and it takes the nib out. And you have to
Right.
do,
So
unfortunately, you have to do 2 passes because it's not wide enough.
ah,
But you can get a tile ground out in about 20 seconds.
yeah. So instead of the old traditional way, like you mentioned, where you've got a little chalk mark between where your hook's going to pop out, and then
Yeah.
you grind down that side, then a couple of grinds in the middle, just so it's nice and loose, and then knock it out with a hammer or whatever, or take the grinder across it, try and smooth it all out. You've
Yeah.
basically sped all that up by making a jig for a tile to go in with the depth already set and the wall chaser slash grinder set in there ready.
Yeah.
Turn it on, set your depth, or set your depth, turn it on, and then just pass your tile through, and then it will just grind that out.
Almost the tile static, and you pass the grinder up over the front.
Ah, okay. Right.
But
Dustless as well, though. It's not just the grinding of the tile. There's no mess. It's like
yeah, because I've got the Metabo, the electric one. I put my Bosch extractor on that. Takes away all the dust. You get left with quite a lot of fine grit that comes out of the grinder. But yeah, it's a nice spot to work in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
we're gonna have
I
to get
saw you
one
use
made
it. I saw you using it. I was like, I don't think I've got the patience to make it, but I completely see the innovation and the and how it would be so useful. But yeah, it looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's massively changed the way we work, and I've used it on a couple of jobs now already, and it's just it's brilliant.
I need
Yeah.
Matty to make me one. He's trying to get me to make it, but it's taking that half an hour, isn't it? That, like you say, Stuart, that's all it took you. But it's forcing yourself to do it, and you just get the grinder out and carry on. Now you've been doing it for the years before, because sometimes we're a bit lazy for those things, aren't we? So I'm going to push myself.
Yeah, it would take me a lot longer than half an hour to make that. I can be very sure.
me too, to be fair. I'd have a few splinters as well. It has to be.
By the time I've put the kettle on and then found my tape measure and a bit of a pen and a pencil and a penguin biscuit, I think I would be within that. I would be well within that 30 minutes before I'd even started. So yeah, well done for getting that made.
Yeah, I'll drop a link in alongside the podcast as well. So I think you popped a post. Was it on Instagram, Stuart, or was it in your stories?
No. I think I did both actually. I think I did
I'll link to
it
it so you can go and visualize it and head off to Stuart's Instagram and see what he has invented, because it's going to be useful to lots of other people, not just us three on this chat. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Stuart, before we wrap this one up?
No, I think we're good there, Mark. It's been a pleasure to speak to you guys. Like you say, we speak every so often and see each other up at the installer shows and bits and pieces. But it's been a pleasure to come on the podcast.
No problem. It's been an absolute honor to have you, and hopefully we can have you again very soon. Because I was just quickly looking through the list there that we had. We've not even scratched the surface of stuff we want to chat to you about, Stuart. So we'll definitely have to get you back on and unpick some of that depth of knowledge for the renewables industry. So we'd love to have you back on and carry on the chat.
Okay, yeah, no problems.
I think it's fair to say that Stuart puts a lot of time and effort into helping other people come into this industry, me and my team included. And I know you're a big proponent of that, sharing your knowledge into the wider pool of people out there, even if it might end up being your competitors, because it raises the bar for everyone. So full credit to you for that, mate. And thank you very much for the help you have given us in our journey so far. And I know if I'm ever struggling on something, you're on the list of people I need to hassle, along with Sam as well. And you see everyone straight. So appreciate that. And like Sam said, it'd be great to get you back to speak about some of these other things. If you have enjoyed listening to us all having a chat, don't forget to get involved in the comments as always. Give it a share on the socials as well. We are very grateful for that interaction. Let us know what you think, good and bad, and leave us a review on Spotify if you get a chance. Thank you all very much for listening and watching, and we'll see you on the next one.